Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling, well, the entire structure and function of the musculoskeletal system. We're aiming to pull out those core concepts you absolutely need to grasp altered health states later on.
Yeah, it's a really important one because it's so easy to think of the skeleton as just, static framework.
Right, just hangs there.
Exactly. But the sources we're using really emphasize this is living dynamic tissue. It does much more than just support.
Absolutely.
Mm.
I mean, the bone matrix itself, it's basically the body's biggest mineral bank account,
Yeah.
right? Storing all that crucial calcium and phosphate.
Mm-hmm. And it's the production site for your blood cells, hematopoiesis.
So our goal today, our mission is really to break down these structures, the cells involved, the hormones,
Yeah.
because you really can't figure out what's gone wrong if you don't first understand what normal actually looks like.
Couldn't agree more. And maybe the one big takeaway right off the bat is this dual nature of bone. It's somehow rigid enough to hold you up.
Yeah, totally rigid.
But it's also dynamic enough to respond instantly to hormonal signals, and it coordinates movement through tendons, ligaments. It's honestly an amazing bit of biological engineering.
Okay, so let's start big picture. The skeleton's main divisions. Can you walk us through how we sort of categorize the whole structure?
Sure, so we basically split it in two. You've got the axial skeleton, that's your central axis, think skull, ribs, sternum, the spine, primarily for protection.
Got it, the core.
Right. And then everything branching off that is the appendicular skeleton. Your limbs, arms, legs, and the girdles, so shoulder and pelvis, that attach them to that axial core. This part is mainly about movement.
And when we look closer at mature bone, it's not just one uniform material, is it? There's a key difference between two main types.
That's right. If you were to, say, cut a long bone open, roughly 80% of its mass is that really dense outer layer that's cortical, or sometimes called compact bone. Super rigid, heavily calcified, built to withstand major stress.
Okay, that's the shell. What's inside?
Inside, you find cancellous, or spongy bone. It looks, well, spongy. It's much lighter. It's made of this intricate lattice, like a web, of tiny beams and spikes. We call those trabeculae and spicules.
And that lattice isn't just random, is it?
Not at all. The way those trabeculae are arranged is incredibly clever. It gives amazing tensile strength resistance to pulling and bending, especially at the ends of bones, but without all the weight of solid compact bone, makes the whole skeleton lighter but still strong.
Okay. And we also classify bones just by their shape, which usually gives a clue about their job.
Yeah, exactly. You have the long bones, like in your arms and legs. They have that main shaft, the diaphysis, and distinct ends, the epiphyses. They work like levers for movement.
Right.
Then you've got short bones, think wrist, ankle bones, mostly spongy inside, good for complex, fine movements. Flat bones, like your skull plates or ribs, are mainly for protection and providing big surfaces for muscles to attach to.
And the last category.
Irregular bones, things like your vertebrae. They have complex shapes because they have very specific jobs, like combining movement with significant load bearing.
Okay, so moving from shape to layers, let's talk about the outer wrapping of the bone, the periosteum. Why is this layer so important?
Well, the periosteum, it's more than just a wrapping. It's fibrous on the outside, but critically, its inner layer contains osteoprogenitor cells.
The precursor cell.
Exactly, the source cells, essential for growth and really crucial for repair if you, say, break a bone. Plus, it's the anchor point for blood vessels and nerves entering the bone.
And flipping to the inside, lining all those internal cavities and the surfaces of the spongy bone, there's the endosteum.
Yes, and it's also packed with those osteoprogenitor cells. The endosteum is vital for remodeling bone from the inside out, regulating growth within the internal structure.
Right. And inside those cavities, we find bone marrow. People know it makes blood cells, but the type and location change, don't they?
They do. You have red bone marrow, which is where the active hematopoiesis happens. In adults, it's not everywhere anymore. It's mostly concentrated in the axial skeleton vertebrae, ribs, sternum, and your hip bones, the ilia.
And the other type.
That's yellow bone marrow. And interestingly, it's mostly made of adipose tissue fat cells. Generally, it's not actively producing blood cells in adults.
Okay, let's zoom in a bit now to the microscopic structure of that dense cortical bone. You mentioned it's incredibly organized. What's the key unit there?
The fundamental unit is the osteon, also called the Haversian system. The best analogy is probably like looking at the rings of a tree trunk or a bundle of straws viewed end-on.
Yeah, I can picture that.
Each osteon is a cylinder made of concentric layers, those are the lamellae, wrapped around a central canal, the Haversian canal.
And that central canal is the pipeline.
Precisely. It carries the blood vessels and nerves that nourish that dense bone unit.
Makes sense. But how do these units connect to each other? They can't be isolated.
Right. There are smaller channels called Volkmann canals that run horizontally, perpendicular to the Haversian canals. They link adjacent osteons, creating this interconnected vascular network throughout the compact bone.
Okay, but now what about the spongy bone? You said it doesn't have these neat canals. How do its cells get nutrients if there aren't direct blood vessels running through it?
That's a key difference. It relies entirely on diffusion. The mature bone cells, the osteocytes, are trapped in little pockets within the bone matrix called lacunae.
Trapped sounds bad.
Well, maybe nested is better.
Uh,
But they're connected by microscopic tunnels called canaliculae. These tunnels form a network filled with tissue fluid, linking all the lacunae together and connecting back to the endosteal surface near blood vessels. So nutrients just diffuse through this tiny canal system to reach every osteocyte.
wow, okay. An intricate delivery system.
Uh-huh.
Now let's talk about the cells themselves, the workforce, basically. The construction and demolition crew managing this whole bone thing. 4 main types.
Yep, 4 key players. Starts with the source, the osteoprogenitor cells. These are the undifferentiated stem cells we mentioned in the periosteum and endosteum. When they get the signal, they differentiate into the builders.
Which are the osteoblasts, the bone builders.
Exactly. B for build. They synthesize the organic part of the matrix first, that collagen-rich stuff called osteoid. To do this, they secrete an important enzyme, alkaline phosphatase. Then they mineralize it, depositing the calcium salt.
But once they've built themselves into a corner, so to speak.
Yeah. Once they're fully encased in the matrix they just created, they mature and change function. They become osteocytes. These are the resident maintenance cells. They sit quietly in their lacunae, but they're essential for keeping that patch of bone matrix alive and healthy. If osteocytes die, that area of bone gets resorbed.
Okay, builders and maintenance. Now for the demo crew.
The osteoclasts. C for chew, or cut down. These are large, multinucleated cells, basically specialized macrophages derived from the same line as blood cells. Their job is resorption, breaking down bone.
How do they do that?
They attach to the bone surface, create a sealed-off acidic environment underneath themselves, and dissolve both the mineral and the organic matrix, releasing calcium and phosphate back into the circulation.
And this whole process, this balance between building and chewing, it's not just abstract biology. We see it play out clinically, right? Like with postmenopausal osteoporosis.
Absolutely perfect example. Think about a patient like the source mentions, Mrs. Tuckey. Estrogen normally acts as a brake on osteoclast activity.
Okay.
When estrogen levels plummet after menopause, that brake is released. The osteoclasts become much more active. They start chewing away bone faster than the osteoblasts can replace it.
Leading to weaker, more brittle bones.
Precisely. Increased fracture risk. It's all about that balance, or in this case, the imbalance between osteoblast and osteoclast activity.
Which brings us very neatly to the next section.
Yeah.
The other tissues involved, and, crucially, the hormones that regulate this whole system. Let's start with the cushion cartilage.
Right, cartilage. It's tough but flexible, semi-rigid, mostly extracellular matrix, actually about 80% water, which gives it that resilience. But the big thing about cartilage is...
No blood supply.
Exactly. It's avascular, no blood vessels, no nerves running through it.
That matters because...
Because healing is incredibly slow and difficult. Nutrients have to diffuse through that dense, watery matrix to reach the cartilage cells, chondrocytes. Without a direct blood supply bringing repair factors in cells, damage often doesn't heal well, unlike bone, which is highly vascular.
Makes sense. And there are different types of cartilage depending on the job.
3 main types. Elastic cartilage has lots of elastin fibers, making it very flexible. Think your outer ear.
Yeah.
Then the most common type is hyaline cartilage. It's smooth, pearly white, found coating the ends of bones in joints, the articular cartilage, and also connecting ribs to the sternum, essential for smooth, low-friction movement.
And the third?
Fibrocartilage. This is kind of a mix between dense connective tissue and hyaline cartilage. It's tough, designed to withstand compression and tension. You find it in places like the intervertebral discs between your vertebrae and the symphysis pubis, the joint at the front of the pelvis.
That symphysis pubis needs some give, especially during pregnancy, right?
Absolutely. Hormonal changes allow it to relax a bit then. Okay, so now for the system-wide control of the hormones. That constant battle between the osteoblasts and osteoclasts we talked about. It's tightly regulated, mainly by the big 3 controllers of blood calcium.
Which are parathyroid hormone, PTH, calcitonin, and vitamin D. Let's start with PTH.
Okay, parathyroid hormone, PTH. Secreted by the parathyroid glands, usually when blood calcium levels drop too low. Its main job is to increase serum calcium.
How does it do that at the expense of bone?
Often, yes, especially with prolonged high levels. PTH does three main things. One, it stimulates osteoclast activity, telling them to release calcium from bone. Two, in the kidneys, it boosts calcium reabsorption, so you pee out less calcium. And critically, at the same time, it decreases phosphate reabsorption.
Why decrease phosphate? Seems counterintuitive.
It's clever, actually. If both calcium and phosphate levels get too high in the blood simultaneously, they can precipitate out and form crystals in soft tissues, which is dangerous. PTH prevents this by getting rid of excess phosphate while holding on to calcium. And the third thing PTH does is activate vitamin D.
Ah, okay. So if PTH is the get calcium now hormone, what puts the brakes on if calcium gets too high? That must be calcitonin.
Exactly. Calcitonin is released by specialized cells, C cells, in the thyroid gland when blood calcium is high. Its job is the opposite of PTH. It lowers blood calcium,
Oh.
primarily by inhibiting osteoclast activity, telling them to stop chewing bone, and possibly by reducing calcium release from the bone fluid compartment. It basically encourages calcium deposition into bone. In fact, high doses are sometimes used as a medication for conditions like Paget disease, where bone resorption is out of control.
Okay, PTH raises calcium. Calcitonin lowers it.
Yeah.
What about the third player, vitamin D? It's not just a vitamin.
Correct. Functionally, it acts like a steroid hormone. Vitamin D is essential for overall calcium balance. Its main role is to increase calcium absorption from your intestines, getting calcium from your diet into your body. It also supports PTH's actions on bone resorption.
And the activation process for vitamin D is really important clinically, isn't it?
Absolutely crucial, especially relating to kidney function. Can I walk you through that pathway quickly?
Please do.
Okay. So vitamin D, whether you get it from sunlight on your skin or from food supplements, is inactive initially. First, it travels to the liver. The liver converts it into 25-hydroxyvitamin D3. This is the main circulating form, kind of the storage form.
Got it. Step 1, liver.
Step 2 happens in the kidneys. The kidneys perform the final critical activation step, converting 25-hydroxyvitamin D3 into 1025-dihydroxyvitamin D3. That is the biologically active, potent form of vitamin D.
Which means if someone has severe kidney disease.
Exactly. If the kidneys aren't working properly, they can't perform that final activation step. So even if the person gets plenty of sunlight or takes vitamin D supplements, they can't make the active hormone.
Leading to poor calcium absorption and downstream bone problems.
Precisely. It highlights just how interconnected everything is. Bone health depends critically on kidney function.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's shift gears now to how things actually move, the joints or articulations and the tissues that connect everything. Two key connector types first.
Right. You have tendons. These are dense fibrous cords, very rich in collagen. They attach muscle to bone. Their job is transmitting the pulling force from muscle contraction to move the bone. They're strong, but not very stretchy.
Which is why you get tendinitis from overuse, inflammation from that repeated stress.
Exactly. And then you have ligaments. These attach bone to bone. They're also fibrous, often appearing as thickenings of the joint capsule itself. They provide stability to the joint. They have a bit more give than tendons, but under excessive force, they tend to tear rather than stretch significantly.
Ouch. Leading to sprains, swelling, pain.
Now, the joints themselves, we can group them into two broad categories based on movement.
Okay.
First are the solid joints, technically called synarthroses. These allow very little or no movement. They don't have a joint cavity. Think of the sutures holding your skull bones together or that cubic symphysis we mentioned earlier.
Fused or nearly fused.
Pretty much. Then you have the joints everyone thinks about when they hear joint, the synovial joints, or diarthrodial joints. These are the freely movable ones. Shoulder, hip, knee, elbow, fingers. Most joints in your limbs are synovial.
And these have a more complex structure inside.
Definitely. Inside a synovial joint, the ends of the bones are capped with that smooth articular cartilage we talked about. The whole thing is enclosed in a tough, fibrous joint capsule, which actually blends with the periosteum of the bones involved.
And inside that capsule.
Lining the inner surface of the capsule is a special membrane called the synovium, or synovial membrane, and it produces synovial fluid.
A lubricant.
The essential lubricant, yes. It's typically clear, viscous, kind of like egg white consistency. It reduces friction between the articular cartilages to almost nothing, allowing smooth movement. It also nourishes the cartilage cells, since cartilage has no blood supply of its own.
And doctors sometimes draw that fluid outright for testing.
Yes, synovial fluid analysis is really important for diagnosing things like joint infections or inflammatory arthritis. The fluid's appearance, cell count, and chemistry can tell you a lot.
Okay. Are there other structures within these synovial joints?
Yes, accessory structures. You have bursae. These are little closed sacs filled with synovial fluid located in places where tendons or muscles might rub over bone, acting like little cushions to prevent friction.
Like a bunion, is that an inflamed bursa?
Often, yes, inflammation of the bursa near the big toe joint.
Mhm.
And you also have menisci in some joints, most famously the knee. These are C-shaped pads of fibrocartilage that sit between the main bones. They act as shock absorbers and help improve the fit and stability of the joint.
Got it. Now, one last crucial thing about joints, nerves, and pain. People often ask, like, if they injure their hip, why might the pain seem to travel down to their knee?
Ah, yes, the concept of referred pain. It comes down to shared nerve pathways. The major nerve trunks that supply sensation to a specific joint capsule, and the joint capsule itself is loaded with pain receptors sensitive to stretch and twisting.
Okay.
Those same nerve trunks often also supply sensation to the muscles moving that joint, and even the skin overlying the joint, and sometimes areas further down the limb.
So the brain gets a pain signal from that nerve trunk,
Yeah.
and it might misinterpret where along that nerve's distribution the problem actually is.
Exactly. The signal says pain in this nerve pathway, and the brain might map it to the knee region, even if the irritation is actually originating higher up in the hip joint capsule or surrounding ligaments.
That makes sense. And there are other nerve fibers in there, too.
Yes, importantly, there are large sensory fibers called proprioceptors, especially in the ligaments. These constantly feed information back to the central nervous system about the position and movement of the joint. This allows for rapid reflexive adjustments in muscle tension to stabilize and protect the joint, say, when you lift something heavy or stumble. Losing that proprioceptive feedback is a big factor in joint instability and degeneration over time.
Wow, okay. That's a lot of ground covered. Let's try to wrap up the key takeaways from this deep dive into musculoskeletal foundations.
All right, so first we looked at the bone architecture itself. The difference between that dense outer cortical bone and the lighter internal cancellous bone with its trabecular structure. And we defined the key cellular players: the osteoblast building bone, the osteocytes maintaining it, and the osteoclasts breaking it down or resorbing it.
Right. Section 1 was the structure and the cells, then Section 2 was about control.
Exactly. The delicate hormonal balance, primarily managed by the big three. PTH acting to raise blood calcium, often by taking it from bone, calcitonin acting to lower blood calcium, promoting bone deposition, and vitamin D, crucially activated by the kidneys, needed for calcium absorption and supporting PTH.
And we saw how kidney failure breaks that vitamin D activation link,
Mm-hmm.
impacting bone health.
Mm-hmm. And finally, Section 3, we looked at movement. We differentiated the immovable solid joints, synarthrosis, from the freely movable synovial joints, diarthrodial joints. We detailed the structure of synovial joint, the capsule, the synovium, the vital lubricating synovial fluid, and accessory structures like bursae and menisci. And we touched on innervation and referred pain.
Okay, a solid recap. Now, for that final thought to leave people mulling over, building on what we've discussed, the source material hints at different types of bone formation.
Ah, yes. When you fracture a bone, the initial repair is very rapid. The body quickly lays down what's called woven bone. It's disorganized, relatively weak, kind of like a quick patch job.
Okay, fast but not strong.
Right. But then over time, that woven bone gets gradually remodeled and replaced by mature, highly organized, much stronger lamellar bone, the kind we find in healthy adult skeletons, arranged in those neat osteons.
So the provocative thought is,
How does the body manage that transition so perfectly? How does it know when to prioritize speed, laying down woven bone fast, versus when to prioritize strength, slowly replacing it with lamellar bone? It must involve incredibly precise timing and coordination between all those cells, osteoblasts, osteoclasts, and the hormonal signals we discussed, switching from rapid scaffolding to long-term load-bearing architecture.
a complex, continuous dance of demolition and reconstruction happening all the time.
Exactly. And understanding that normal physiological timing, that dance, is really the foundation for understanding what goes wrong in musculoskeletal disease.
Well, thank you for guiding us through that complex dance today. And thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this breakdown gives you a solid framework for whatever you're tackling next.